Title: The Forgotten Vows. Chapter 1: The Beginning of the End. Madeline Bennett's life had always revolved around order and routine. Marrying Andrew, her college sweetheart, felt like the culmination of years of dreaming and planning. Their connection was intense and grounded in shared values, aspirations, and a deep understanding of each other. However, after a decade together, their love began to wane. Each passing day felt like a small betrayal, a gradual departure from the warmth and joy they once shared. Andrew, once a romantic and thoughtful partner, grew distant and irritable, coming home later and later from work. Madeline, too, withdrew, pouring herself into her job at the hospital as a way to avoid facing the truth. One evening, after another silent dinner, Andrew looked across the table with a strange expression. His usual stoic demeanor had softened, replaced with something she hadn't seen in a while: vulnerability. "Madeline, I don't think this is working anymore," he said, his voice tinged with a sadness that startled her. His words lingered in the air, a painful echo of the feelings she had kept bottled inside. Although the thought of separation hurt, she couldn't deny that she, too, felt trapped by the monotony of their failing marriage. They sat in silence, letting the reality sink in. Madeline felt a mix of pain and relief, recognizing the inevitability of their separation. "Maybe it's best for both of us," she replied softly, her voice steady despite the tumultuous emotions brewing inside. That night, lying in bed alone, she reflected on the irony of it all, how a relationship that once made her feel whole had left her feeling fractured. She knew this was just the beginning of a painful journey, but part of her hoped that it might also be the start of something new. Chapter 2: A New Life, Alone. Adjusting to life alone wasn't easy. For the first time in years, Madeline found herself navigating a world without Andrew by her side. She moved into a modest downtown apartment, trading the comfort of their shared home for a space that felt foreign and empty. Each day, she immersed herself in work, taking on extra shifts at the hospital to fill the void left by her failed marriage. The hospital staff noticed her dedication, often joking that she'd practically moved in, but Madeline knew that work was merely a distraction. Outside of work, Madeline began searching for pieces of herself she'd lost over the years. She enrolled in an art class at a local community center, picking up a paintbrush for the first time since college. The simple act of painting brought her a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. With each stroke, she poured her emotions onto the canvas, letting her frustrations and sadness take shape in bold, expressive colors. She painted her pain, her hope, and her desire for a fresh start. Through this creative outlet, Madeline began to rediscover who she was, separate from her identity as Andrew's wife. In the quiet of her apartment, she began to feel a new kind of contentment, one built on self-discovery and resilience. Her life was far from perfect, but there was a freedom in being alone, a chance to rewrite her own story. She started exploring her city, trying new restaurants and meeting new people, savoring the independence she had missed in her marriage. Yet, despite her progress, there were nights when the loneliness felt insurmountable. In those moments, Madeline reminded herself that healing wasn't linear, and she resolved to keep moving forward, one step at a time. Chapter 3: The Unexpected Reunion. 3 years passed, and Madeline had almost completely rebuilt her life. Her work had become more than just a distraction, it was a source of pride. She had even started showing her artwork at local galleries, an achievement she would have never dreamed of while she was married. But her sense of peace was abruptly disrupted one evening when she attended a friend's wedding. As she mingled among old friends, she caught sight of a familiar face across the room: Andrew. She felt a strange mix of emotions: surprise, curiosity, and an undeniable pang of nostalgia. They exchanged polite smiles, and before the night ended, found themselves seated together, reminiscing about the past. The conversation was awkward at first, each word measured, as if they were both afraid of reopening old wounds. But as the evening wore on, their guards began to fall. Andrew opened up about his life, sharing how he'd thrown himself into his career after their separation, moving overseas and traveling in search of something he couldn't quite define. "You look different, Madeline," he admitted, his gaze lingering on her face with a mixture of admiration and regret. Madeline felt a strange flutter in her chest. She had moved on, or so she thought. Yet, sitting across from Andrew, she couldn't deny the pull she still felt toward him. They parted ways that night, but Andrew asked if they could meet again, just to catch up. Against her better judgment, Madeline agreed. She didn't know if she was opening old wounds or revisiting something that might still hold promise, but she was willing to find out. Chapter 4, Rekindled Flames. Over the following weeks, Madeline and Andrew's meetings became more frequent. They would meet at quiet cafes, go on long walks through the city, and talk late into the evening. Their conversations felt different this time, deeper, more honest. Both had grown and changed, shaped by their experiences and the years they spent apart. They shared stories of their lives since the separation, discussing the moments of growth and the struggles they had faced. Andrew, too, had dealt with his own regrets and had come to terms with the role he had played in the demise of their marriage. One evening, as they walked along the waterfront, Andrew reached for her hand. "I never stopped thinking about you, Madeline. I was just too lost to see what I had until it was too late." His voice held a sincerity that tugged at her heart, filling her with a mixture of longing and hesitation. She looked into his eyes and saw the same vulnerability that had been there on the night of their separation. It was an invitation, a chance to start over. Madeline hesitated, unsure if she was ready to risk her heart again. "I don't know if we can go back, Andrew," she replied softly, her voice betraying the doubts that lingered. But Andrew shook his head, squeezing her hand. "We don't have to go back. Maybe we can build something new. Together." In that moment, she felt a glimmer of hope, a fragile possibility that maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other. Chapter 5, The Promise of Redemption. As Madeline and Andrew embarked on their journey to rebuild their relationship, both were cautiously optimistic. They attended couples counseling, determined to address the issues that had once driven them apart. Through their sessions, they learned to communicate in ways they never had before, uncovering past wounds and understanding each other's fears. They made a pact to be open and honest, to never let resentment and misunderstanding fester like they had in the past. Yet, as they grew closer, Madeline found herself haunted by memories of the pain they had caused each other. The trust between them was fragile, and she struggled with lingering doubts. Andrew sensed her hesitations and did his best to reassure her, planning small surprises and carving out time for her in his busy schedule. He was determined to prove that he was fully committed to making their relationship work. Their shared moments felt sweeter, the laughter genuine, and the silences comforting rather than strained. One evening, as they lay in bed together, Andrew took her hand, looking into her eyes with a vulnerability she hadn't seen before. "Madeline, no more secrets. Let's face everything together, whatever it takes." His words resonated deeply, giving her the strength to put her fears aside and embrace the present. They were both different people now, and perhaps this time, their love could be strong enough to withstand the challenges ahead. Chapter 6, Ghosts of the Past. Just as they began to settle into their new life, an unexpected visitor disrupted their peace, Andrew's old college flame, Natalie. Natalie had been his first love, a relationship that had ended abruptly but had left a lingering impact. Though Andrew assured Madeline that he had no romantic feelings for Natalie, her sudden reappearance stirred insecurities Madeline thought she had overcome. She tried to brush it off, but Natalie's presence became increasingly intrusive, with her casual messages and frequent requests to meet up. One evening, Madeline received a call from an unknown number. To her surprise, it was Natalie. "I thought you should know," Natalie began, her voice dripping with false sincerity. "Andrew and I have been talking for a while now. I don't mean to interfere, but he and I share something special." Madeline's heart sank as Natalie's words planted seeds of doubt. Confronting Andrew, her voice trembled as she asked, "Is there something you're not telling me?" Andrew was genuinely shocked, denying any involvement with Natalie beyond casual conversation. But the damage was done, the specter of betrayal had resurfaced, and Madeline found herself struggling to trust him once again. She wanted to believe him, but trust was a fragile thing, and the scars of their past were hard to ignore.
Chapter 7, A Test of Faith. The following months tested Madeline's faith in their relationship. Despite Andrew's reassurances, she wrestled with her insecurities, her mind constantly replaying Natalie's insinuations. She felt as though she were reliving the loneliness of their past, questioning whether Andrew truly loved her or if she was setting herself up for more heartbreak. Desperate for clarity, she threw herself back into her art, using her paintings as an outlet for the emotions she couldn't express to Andrew. Seeing her struggle, Andrew planned a weekend getaway to the mountains, hoping the change of scenery would help them reconnect. The crisp air and serene landscape provided a peaceful backdrop as they discussed their fears and dreams for the future. Under the stars, Andrew made a heartfelt vow, promising to always put her first, to always fight for their love, and to never let anything or anyone come between them again. Though her heart remained guarded, Madeline could feel the weight of her doubts beginning to lift. Chapter 8. Rediscovering Intimacy. The mountain retreat marked a turning point for Madeline and Andrew. Surrounded by nature, they found themselves reconnecting in ways they hadn't expected. Their laughter came more easily. Their shared silences felt comforting, and each touch reignited the spark that had once defined their relationship. Over the campfire, they reminisced about the early days of their romance, sharing stories they hadn't thought of in years. Madeline found herself remembering why she had fallen in love with him in the first place: the sense of adventure, his quiet but unwavering devotion, and the way he had always made her feel seen. For the first time in a long while, she felt her heart begin to thaw. Andrew, too, seemed transformed, opening up to her in ways he never had before. He spoke of his regrets, the years they lost, and his own fears of inadequacy that had kept him distant in their marriage. It was a raw, honest conversation that left them both feeling vulnerable but strangely liberated. Madeline took his hand and squeezed it, silently acknowledging the progress they had made. They returned from the mountains feeling closer than ever, as though they had rediscovered a version of themselves that had been buried beneath years of hurt and misunderstanding. They began to incorporate small rituals into their daily lives: a shared cup of coffee in the mornings, cooking dinner together, and ending each night by exchanging one thing they were grateful for. These small gestures fostered a sense of intimacy that made their bond feel stronger and more genuine than before. Chapter 9. Shadows of Doubt. Just as Madeline began to feel secure in their renewed relationship, Natalie resurfaced once more, this time with a determined intensity. She began attending the same social gatherings, showing up at events where she knew Madeline and Andrew would be present. Her lingering glances and casual touches didn't go unnoticed by Madeline, and though Andrew reassured her each time, Madeline couldn't ignore the discomfort that gnawed at her. One afternoon, as Madeline browsed her messages, she found a photo in her inbox: Natalie and Andrew, sitting together at what appeared to be a coffee shop. The image was ambiguous, yet somehow damning, triggering a flood of insecurities that Madeline thought she had buried. She confronted Andrew that evening, her voice trembling with anger and hurt. "If there's truly nothing between you and Natalie, then why does she feel so confident in pursuing you?" she demanded. Andrew, visibly frustrated, defended himself passionately. He reminded her of the promises they had made, his commitment to their future, and the journey they had both undertaken to rebuild their relationship. Though his words were sincere, Madeline found herself struggling to silence the doubts that Natalie had planted. In an attempt to clear the air, Andrew finally agreed to confront Natalie directly, hoping it would lay her suspicions to rest. Madeline knew she had to let him handle it, but the incident cast a lingering shadow over their otherwise joyful progress. Chapter 10. Confronting the Past. Andrew met with Natalie in a crowded cafe, choosing a public place to avoid any misunderstandings. His tone was firm as he made it clear that he was committed to Madeline and that any attempt to interfere with their relationship had to stop. Natalie, however, was undeterred, her expression shifting between hurt and indignation. "Andrew, we were something special once," she said, her voice laced with a nostalgia that felt unsettling. "Are you really going to throw away what we had?" Andrew shook his head, feeling a surge of frustration. "Natalie, that part of my life is over. Madeline is my future now, and I won't let anything come between us again." His words were final, leaving Natalie visibly stunned. She left without another word, and Andrew felt a sense of closure he hadn't anticipated. For the first time, He felt like he could truly move forward without the weight of his past dragging him back. That evening, Andrew recounted the conversation to Madeline, hoping it would ease her fears. She listened quietly, her heart softening as he spoke with sincerity. For the first time since Natalie's reappearance, she felt a sense of security return. "I trust you, Andrew," she whispered, reaching for his hand. They spent the rest of the night wrapped in each other's arms, their bond fortified by the challenges they had faced and the determination to protect what they had rebuilt together.
Chapter 11, An Unforeseen Joy. A few months after Andrew's final encounter with Natalie, Madeline began feeling unusually tired and queasy. At first, she brushed it off, attributing it to her demanding schedule at the hospital. But as the days passed, the symptoms grew more pronounced. After some gentle prodding from Andrew, she decided to visit the doctor. The results left her speechless. She was pregnant. The news came as a surprise, and a myriad of emotions flooded her mind: joy, excitement, and a hint of apprehension. Madeline hadn't considered the possibility of becoming a mother again, but now, with Andrew by her side, she felt an unexpected warmth. When she shared the news with him, Andrew's reaction was one of pure happiness. He took her in his arms, whispering words of love and promises for their future as a family. The pregnancy brought them even closer, as they navigated this new chapter with renewed purpose. They spent evenings decorating the nursery, reading parenting books, and envisioning their lives as parents. The anticipation created a deep, abiding bond between them, filling their home with laughter and dreams of the future. Madeline felt as though they had been given a second chance not just at love, but at building a family they had both once dreamed of. Chapter 12, An Unexpected Reunion. One afternoon, Madeline attended a hospital fundraiser, mingling with colleagues and community members. As she moved through the crowd, she spotted a familiar face, Natalie, who had recently started working as a consultant for a medical company partnering with the hospital. Though Madeline's initial reaction was one of unease, she approached Natalie with a calm determination, no longer willing to let her insecurities dictate her actions. Natalie's demeanor had shifted. There was a somberness in her eyes, a quiet resignation. "I owe you an apology, Madeline," she said, her voice tinged with regret. "I was selfish and misguided. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you, and him." Madeline listened, surprised but receptive. The conversation brought a sense of closure, allowing her to let go of the lingering bitterness she held toward Natalie. They parted on cordial terms, both recognizing the importance of moving forward without resentment. This newfound peace allowed Madeline to embrace her pregnancy with an unburdened heart. She had spent so much time looking over her shoulder, but now, her focus was entirely on the family she and Andrew were building. With each passing day, she felt more grateful for the journey they had taken, the struggles, the heartbreak, and the redemption that had brought them to this moment. Chapter 13, A New Beginning. The day finally arrived when Madeline gave birth to their son, a moment filled with overwhelming joy and gratitude. Holding their child in her arms, she looked at Andrew, her heart full of love and wonder. They had come so far, overcoming obstacles that had once seemed insurmountable. Their son symbolized not only their love, but also the strength and resilience they had found within themselves and each other. In the weeks that followed, they settled into their roles as parents, navigating sleepless nights and the everyday joys of watching their child grow. They created new traditions, sharing bedtime stories and weekend outings, savoring the family they had worked so hard to rebuild. Andrew's devotion was evident in every small gesture, from late-night feedings to the quiet moments he spent simply watching their son sleep. Madeline found herself filled with a deep sense of contentment. The life they had now was not perfect, but it was real, rooted in trust, respect, and a shared vision for the future. The challenges they had faced had only strengthened their bond, creating a foundation that felt unbreakable. She knew there would be more obstacles ahead, but she felt ready to face them, secure in the knowledge that they would face them together. Chapter 14, Embracing the Journey. Years passed, and as their son grew, Madeline and Andrew found themselves reflecting on the journey they had taken. Their love story had been anything but conventional, marked by heartbreak, separation, and a hard-fought reconciliation. Yet, it was these very struggles that had deepened their connection, allowing them to grow not just as individuals, but as partners and parents. They had learned the importance of vulnerability, of honesty, and of choosing each other every day. Their journey had taught them that love was not just about passion or romance, but about commitment and resilience. Madeline often looked back on the woman she had been before, grateful for the lessons she had learned along the way. She knew now that love was not about perfection, but about finding someone who was willing to face life's imperfections with her. As they watched their son take his first steps, Madeline squeezed Andrew's hand, silently thanking him for never giving up on their love. Their journey had not been easy, but it had been worth every moment. Together, they had crafted a love story that was uniquely theirs, a story of redemption, renewal, and the enduring power of second chances. And as they faced the future, they did so with a renewed sense of hope, knowing that they had truly found their way back to each other. Epilogue, a legacy of love. Years later, Madeline and Andrew shared their story with their son, wanting him to understand the power of resilience, forgiveness, and unwavering love. Their story had come full circle, transforming from a tale of lost love to one of enduring devotion. As they grew older, they looked back on their lives with pride, grateful for the journey that had led them to each other, knowing that they had built something lasting, something beautiful, a legacy of love that would carry on for generations to come.